You thought Funko Pops were weird? You thought that was the extent of how far companies would go to slap a beloved character onto random products for a quick profit? Oh, my friend, you have no idea what's waiting for you in the depths of official Pokemon merchandise history. I'm talking about Pokemon toilet paper that you're apparently supposed to feel good about using Pikachu's face to clean yourself. I'm talking about Pokemon curry packs that somehow make eating dinner a branded experience. I'm talking about exercise equipment that turns your workout routine into a Pokemon-themed fitness journey. Because apparently even sweating needs to be part of the franchise experience. Some of this stuff is so bizarre that it crosses the line from creative marketing into existential questions about consumerism and what we're willing to buy if our favorite characters are printed on it. And the truly wild part is that most of this isn't bootleg nonsense made in someone's garage. This is official licensed merchandise that actual companies spent money to develop, market, and sell to consumers who apparently thought, you know what my life is missing? Pokemon branded household cleaning products. So buckle up, because we're about to dive into the weirdest, most inexplicable, and occasionally horrifying world of Pokemon merchandise that makes you question whether humanity has collectively lost its mind, or whether we've achieved some kind of perfect fusion of capitalism and childhood nostalgia that was inevitable from the moment Pikachu first appeared on a screen. Before we get into the specific insanity, I need to give you some context about just how massive the Pokemon merchandise empire actually is. We're not talking about a few toys and t-shirts here. Pokemon is literally the highest grossing media franchise in human history, and the vast majority of that money doesn't come from the games or the anime or the movies. It comes from merchandise. Billions and billions of dollars worth of stuff with Pokemon characters printed, molded, or somehow incorporated into products that range from the perfectly logical to the absolutely incomprehensible. The Pokemon Company has licensing agreements with hundreds of manufacturers around the world, all competing to find new and increasingly creative ways to put these characters on things that people will buy. The scale of this operation is genuinely staggering. There are entire warehouses full of Pokemon products that most fans have never heard of, regional exclusives that only exist in specific countries, limited time collaborations with brands you'd never expect to have anything to do with Pokemon, seasonal items that get produced for holidays, events, and cultural celebrations that have nothing to do with the actual franchise. What makes this even more interesting is that different regions have completely different approaches to what constitutes acceptable Pokemon merchandise. Japanese companies seem willing to put Pokemon characters on literally anything if there's a market for it, while American companies are slightly more conservative about what products make sense for the brand. This has created a situation where the most bizarre Pokemon merchandise tends to be region-specific, which means that fans in different countries often have no idea about the absolutely wild stuff that's being sold in other markets. The internet has made it easier to discover these regional oddities, but there's still a whole world of weird Pokemon products that only exist in specific places and contexts. Let's start with something that seems innocent enough but gets progressively more bizarre the more you think about it. Pokemon food and drink products. Now, I'm not talking about Pokemon-shaped cookies or candy that's clearly marketed to kids. I'm talking about actual meal products, beverages, and food items that are somehow supposed to enhance your dining experience through the power of licensed characters. The Pokemon curry packs are probably the most famous example of this category, and they perfectly capture the weird intersection of practical necessity and branded marketing that defines so much of this merchandise. These aren't novelty items, they're actual curry meal kits that you're supposed to cook and eat, except they come in packages covered with Pokemon characters, and somehow that's supposed to make your dinner more enjoyable. What I find fascinating about the curry packs is how they represent this attempt to integrate Pokemon into the most basic human activities. Eating isn't usually considered a branded experience, but someone at the Pokemon Company apparently decided that there was money to be made in convincing people that their meals would be improved by the presence of cartoon characters on the packaging. And it worked. These curry packs were hugely popular, which suggests that there's a significant portion of the Pokemon fan base that genuinely wants to incorporate the franchise into every aspect of their daily lives, including what they eat for dinner. But the curry packs were just the beginning. There have been Pokemon branded sodas, energy drinks, coffee, tea, and even alcoholic beverages in some regions. The alcoholic ones are particularly weird because they represent this attempt to age up the Pokemon brand for adult consumers who grew up with the franchise but still want it to be part of their social drinking experiences. I've seen Pokemon beer cans that feature elaborate artwork of different Pokemon types, as if the choice between Pikachu Lager and Charizard Ale is supposed to be some kind of meaningful consumer decision. There's something deeply surreal about the idea of adults sitting around a bar discussing the flavor profile of Squirtle branded sake while presumably still maintaining that this is normal adult behavior. The candy and gum category gets even weirder because it often includes promotional tie-ins that turn eating candy into a form of gambling. I'm talking about products where the real value isn't the food itself, but the rare promotional cards, stickers, or toys that might be randomly included in the packaging. This has created a subculture of people who buy cases of Pokemon gum not because they want to chew gum, but because they're hoping to find rare promotional items that might be worth significant money on the collector's market. There are YouTube channels dedicated to opening these food products, like their trading card packs, with people getting genuinely excited about finding rare promotional materials inside packages of what is essentially just flavored sugar. The intersection of food products and gambling mechanics feels particularly dystopian when you realize that these products are often marketed to children who are being trained to associate eating with the excitement of potentially finding rare collectibles. It's like slot machines disguised as snack food. But if you want to see where Pokemon merchandise gets truly inexplicable, let's talk about the everyday household items that someone decided needed to be Pokemon themed. I'm talking about products that serve completely practical functions but somehow got transformed into branded experiences for reasons that I genuinely cannot understand. The Pokemon toilet paper is probably the most infamous example of this category, and it raises so many questions that I don't even know where to begin. Who decided that bathroom activities needed to be enhanced by the presence of beloved childhood characters? What focus group testing led to the conclusion that people wanted to incorporate Pikachu into their most private moments? The product exists, which means that somewhere in Japan, a business executive looked at market research and concluded that there was sufficient consumer demand for Pokemon branded toilet paper to justify the development and manufacturing costs. Multiple people had to approve this concept, design the packaging, negotiate the licensing agreements, and create marketing materials for toilet paper with cartoon characters on it. And apparently it sold well enough that similar products kept getting made. There have been Pokemon tissues, paper towels, napkins, and other disposable paper products that all raise the same fundamental question about whether there's any limit to what people will buy if their favorite characters are printed on it. The hygiene products category is equally baffling. I've seen Pokemon toothpaste, toothbrushes, soap, shampoo, and even deodorant. These are products that serve essential health and hygiene functions, but someone decided that these functions would be improved by the addition of cartoon characters. The Pokemon toothpaste is particularly weird because it suggests that children's dental health can be improved by making toothbrushing into a branded experience. There might actually be some logic to this if putting Pikachu on toothpaste makes kids more excited about brushing their teeth, then maybe the licensing fee is worth it from a public health perspective. But then you get into products like Pokemon laundry detergent, dishwashing soap, and household cleaning supplies, and the logic starts to break down. These are products that adults use for mundane household maintenance tasks, and it's unclear how the presence of Pokemon characters is supposed to enhance the experience of washing dishes or doing laundry. The chopsticks are particularly fascinating because they represent this intersection of practical utility and cultural branding. Chopsticks are functional tools that people use every day in many cultures, but Pokemon branded chopsticks transform this basic utensil into a character-themed experience. I've seen elaborate sets of Pokemon chopsticks that come with matching bowls, plates, and serving dishes, all designed to turn every meal into a Pokemon-themed event. There's something almost ritualistic about this approach to dining, as if the act of eating has been transformed into a form of fandom expression. But perhaps the most interesting category of household items is the stuff that seems designed to make your entire living space into a Pokemon-themed environment. I'm talking about Pokemon curtains, bed sheets, towels, rugs, and even furniture that's designed to surround you with franchise imagery at all times. This represents a level of brand integration that goes beyond just buying products with favorite characters on them. It's about creating a living environment where the boundaries between your personal space and the commercial franchise become completely blurred. Now let's talk about what might be the most disturbing category of Pokemon merchandise: the toys and plushes that somehow went horribly wrong during the design or manufacturing process. I'm not talking about official products that were poorly made. I'm talking about officially licensed items that are so bizarre, creepy, or unsettling that they feel like they were designed by people who had never actually seen Pokemon before. The talking Pikachu car is probably the most famous example of this phenomenon. This was an official product that was apparently supposed to appeal to children, but the end result was a yellow vehicle with Pikachu's face that would make various Pokemon sounds while you drove it around. The problem was that the proportions were completely wrong, the sounds were distorted and electronic in a way that made them creepy rather than cute, and the overall effect was less fun toy and more nightmare fuel. The car looked like someone had taken a normal toy vehicle and grotesquely stretched Pikachu's face over it without any consideration for how the character's features would translate to a three-dimensional object. The eyes were too big, the mouth was in the wrong place, and the ears didn't connect to the head properly. It was like a Pikachu that had been put through some kind of horrific transformation process. But the talking feature made it even worse. Instead of cute Pikachu sounds, the car would emit these electronic screeches and distorted audio clips that sounded more like a malfunctioning robot than a beloved cartoon character. Children who received this toy as a gift probably had nightmares instead of fun playtime experiences. The plush category has produced some similarly disturbing results, particularly when manufacturers try to create realistic or detailed versions of Pokemon that work better as simple cartoon characters. I've seen Pikachu plushes with anatomically correct proportions that somehow make the character look unsettling rather than cute, and Pokemon plushes with detailed facial features that cross the line from adorable into uncanny valley. There's something about trying to make cartoon characters look realistic that often produces results that are more creepy than appealing. The simplified, stylized designs of most Pokemon work perfectly in 2 dimensions, but when you try to translate them into detailed 3-dimensional objects with realistic proportions and features, the results can be genuinely disturbing. But the absolute worst examples of this category come from the world of bootleg merchandise. Unofficial products that were clearly inspired by Pokemon but were made by manufacturers who either didn't understand the characters or didn't care about quality control. I've seen bootleg Pikachu toys that look like yellow rats with dead eyes, Charizard figures that look more like demonic dragons than friendly Pokemon, and plushes that barely resemble their supposed inspiration. The bootleg market is fascinating because it reveals how easily beloved characters can be transformed into something horrifying through poor design and manufacturing. These products often end up being accidentally hilarious because they miss the mark so spectacularly, but they also demonstrate how important good design and quality control are for maintaining the appeal of licensed characters. There are entire websites and social media accounts dedicated to documenting the worst examples of bootleg Pokemon merchandise, and some of these products have become memes in their own right. The Pika Pika knockoff that looks like a diseased mouse, the Charizard that appears to be having an existential crisis, the Squirtle that looks like it's been through some kind of traumatic experience. These products have achieved a kind of cult status among fans who collect them specifically because they're so bad. But let's move on to a category of Pokemon merchandise that's simultaneously more logical and more bizarre than anything we've discussed so far. Fitness and lifestyle products that are somehow supposed to enhance your health and wellness journey through the power of licensed characters. The Pokemon exercise equipment category is genuinely extensive and includes everything from yoga mats and resistance bands to stationary bikes and treadmills. The basic logic here seems to be that people will be more motivated to exercise if their workout equipment features their favorite characters, which might actually be true for some people. The Pokemon yoga mats are probably the most successful example of this category because they serve a practical function while adding just enough character theming to make the product feel special without being overwhelming. A yoga mat with subtle Pokemon designs can actually enhance the workout experience for fans without making the equipment feel like a toy. But then you get into products like Pokemon stationary bikes, which raise more complex questions about the relationship between fitness and entertainment. These aren't just exercise bikes with Pokemon stickers on them, they're elaborate pieces of equipment that are designed to gamify the workout experience by incorporating Pokemon-themed challenges, achievements, and progress tracking. I've seen stationary bikes that come with built-in screens that display Pokemon-themed workout programs, where your pedaling speed affects your progress through virtual Pokemon environments and your fitness goals are tied to Pokemon collection mechanics. It's like someone took the addictive elements of Pokemon games and applied them to cardiovascular exercise. The concept is actually pretty clever from a behavioral psychology perspective. If you can make exercise feel like playing a Pokemon game, then people who love Pokemon might be more motivated to maintain consistent workout routines. The gamification elements provide external motivation and reward structures that can help people stick with fitness goals that they might otherwise abandon. But there's also something deeply weird about the idea of sweating on a stationary bike while Pikachu cheers you on from a screen and your workout progress gets translated into Pokemon collection achievements. It represents this total integration of entertainment branding into personal health activities that feels like it could only exist in our current era of hyper-commercialized consumer culture. The Pokemon fitness equipment also raises questions about the target demographic for these products. Are they for children who need to be tricked into exercising through the appeal of cartoon characters? Are they for adults who want to maintain their connection to childhood interests while pursuing fitness goals? Are they for families who want to share both fitness activities and Pokemon fandom? The pricing on some of these products suggests they're primarily targeted at adult consumers with significant disposable income, which means there are apparently enough adult Pokemon fans who are willing to spend hundreds or thousands of dollars on exercise equipment specifically because it's branded with their favorite characters. There's also an interesting subcategory of Pokemon sports equipment that includes everything from basketball hoops and soccer balls to tennis rackets and golf accessories. These products suggest that competitive sports can somehow be enhanced by the presence of Pokemon branding, which feels like a stretch but apparently has enough market appeal to justify production. The Pokemon golf accessories are particularly bizarre because golf is generally considered a sophisticated adult activity, but someone decided that golfers would be interested in using clubs, balls, and accessories decorated with cartoon characters. I've seen Pokemon golf ball sets where each ball features a different character, as if your choice of which Pokemon to hit into the water hazard is supposed to be part of the strategic game experience. As I've been researching and thinking about all of these products, I keep coming back to the same fundamental question. What does it mean when a media franchise becomes so pervasive that it can be successfully integrated into literally any product category? Pokemon has achieved something that very few brands have managed: total lifestyle integration, where there's essentially no aspect of daily life that can't be enhanced, improved, or at least branded through the addition of franchise characters. You can wake up in Pokemon pajamas, brush your teeth with Pokemon toothpaste, eat breakfast with Pokemon utensils, work out on Pokemon exercise equipment, clean your house with Pokemon cleaning supplies, and go to bed on Pokemon sheets. This level of brand integration represents either the ultimate achievement of consumer capitalism or a troubling example of how commercial interests can colonize every aspect of personal experience. Maybe it's both. What's particularly interesting is how this merchandise reveals different cultural attitudes toward the relationship between childhood interests and adult identity. In some cultures, maintaining connections to childhood entertainment through branded consumer products is seen as normal adult behavior, while in others it might be viewed as immature or inappropriate. The global success of weird Pokemon merchandise suggests that there's a significant international market of people who want to maintain their connection to childhood interests through their purchasing decisions, even when those decisions involve buying toilet paper with cartoon characters on it. But I think there's also something beautiful about the fact that a media franchise can inspire such devoted fandom that people are willing to integrate it into the most mundane aspects of their lives. The person who buys Pokemon laundry detergent isn't just purchasing a cleaning product, they're making a daily choice to surround themselves with something that brings them joy, even in the context of boring household chores. Maybe the real message of all this weird merchandise isn't that consumer culture has gone too far, but that people are finding creative ways to inject happiness and nostalgia into the ordinary routines of adult life. If using Pikachu toilet paper makes someone smile during an otherwise mundane bathroom visit, then maybe that's actually a positive thing. Or maybe we've all collectively lost our minds and decided that everything needs to be branded entertainment. It's honestly hard to tell the difference sometimes. Looking at the sheer variety and strangeness of Pokemon merchandise that has been produced over the past 25 years, I'm struck by how it represents this ongoing negotiation between childhood nostalgia and adult consumer identity. Every weird product is essentially asking the question, how far are you willing to go to maintain your connection to something you loved as a child? For some people, the answer is apparently all the way to Pokemon branded exercise equipment and household cleaning supplies, which might seem excessive but also represents a kind of commitment to joy and whimsy that's actually pretty admirable in its own way. The weirdest Pokemon merchandise serves as this fascinating document of consumer psychology, cultural differences, and the ongoing evolution of how we relate to media franchises in our daily lives. Whether you find it inspiring or terrifying probably says more about your own relationship with nostalgia and consumer culture than it does about the products themselves. What's the weirdest piece of Pokemon merchandise you've ever seen or owned? Do you think there's a line that shouldn't be crossed when it comes to putting beloved characters on everyday products? Or is anything fair game if it makes people happy? And honestly, have you ever found yourself genuinely tempted by any of these bizarre products, even if you knew they were completely ridiculous? Well, stick around for the best Pokemon channel that exists, I guess. I mean, probably anyways.